Hi, Dana.
Hi, Melanie.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's really good to be here with you, honestly. It's good to be sitting here with you, and you know how much I love your work, and I'm just honored to be chatting with you today.
Well, ditto, right back at you. I'm really excited to be chatting about you. We've talked for a long time about doing an interview with you in kind of this whole Meet Our Memoirists um, series, and it seems appropriate since you are our leader and you are our founder that people get to know you and get to know a little bit about you. So it's been great to chat with you and to hear more about your work as well. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you are sitting in your house in Virginia, and we were just talking about the beautiful weather, and you have a nice day there. You can see in the background here, I've got a nice day. I don't know about you, but on these kinds of days, I find it really difficult to motivate myself to go sit at my writing desk, and I can find all sorts of reasons not to. What do you do to kind of keep yourself motivated in the midst of, summertime, in the midst of all the other things you've got going on? You've got a toddler. How do you keep motivated?
Oh, that's a really good question. On days like today, when it's nice out and not 100 degrees like it's been for the past couple of weeks, it's hard not to want to get outside and step away from the computer. But it's for me, honestly, writing is a matter of necessity. I need that time to decompress. I need that time to sort of synthesize in order for me to be fully present in my other roles as a mom, as a wife, as a dog mom, who, I mean, you can see him right here.
Oh, look at that. He's taking a lazy approach to the day.
Oh yes, definitely. But I think in terms of motivating myself too, I try to create an environment that is most welcoming and inviting for me to sit down and feel like I'm most myself. So that when I open my laptop, it's not necessarily feeling like a job
Yeah.
that I'm preparing myself to do. It's more like my leisure, my privilege, and my me time, which is a rarity when you have a toddler. So
Absolutely. Now, are you
yeah,
somebody who writes every day?
that's a great question. I would say almost every weekday
Yeah.
for sure. I'm writing in some capacity. Weekends, probably not as much because I try to reserve that time for family.
Yeah.
Just because, my husband works long hours and we don't get to spend as much time, the three of us together, during the weeks. So the weekend usually ends up being more about us and less about writing time.
Yeah.
But generally during Audrey's nap time, that's when I get my time to open my computer and do my writing work. There's
Isn't
certainly
it
the
amazing
exception.
how we have to just kind of find those spaces, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went through kind of a little bit of a writing hiatus, a self-imposed writing hiatus, just to give myself a breather from some of the stuff I was writing and some of the discouragement I was feeling about it. And so I've just recently kind of decided to recommit to getting a more regular practice in. And I had somebody kind of give me a schedule, like kind of say, what are you going to do? How are you going to, what should I hold you accountable for? And I said, like, maybe that I'll write every weekday. That was kind of my same thing. And I gave myself, like, even if it's just 10 minutes, kind of to find those windows. So, yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean this huge idea. I think it started on Twitter of like write anywhere. That might not be the exact one, but people were taking photos of themselves on their various subways and in the passenger seat of a car, just finding any slice of time to be able to get
it's funny. I envy people who can do that because I
that.
have to be in a very particular environment.
Yeah, and I do too, actually. I need that time to sort of decompress, as I said earlier, and be able to feel like I'm present
Yeah.
and not distracted.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I know that you and I have been talking about some of the work that you're doing, and in our interview, you talked more about the memoir that you're working on, which is following the death by suicide of your father. And so some difficult grief material and trauma material that you're exploring. And I know from our conversations that you've been working on a particularly tough section of that book. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you are kind of managing to move through some of that really difficult material, but also keep yourself kind of grounded in the process? What are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually been working on an essay that contains a component of what the new memoir will house. And I thought that when I had written the previous version of the manuscript, which I mentioned a little bit in the written interview, that I had really expounded upon everything, except there was this one little thing that I was like, oh man, do I really have to talk about that? Yeah, maybe I'll just skip over that. And we know how that works, right? We know that we run away from the things that are most important.
Yeah.
And as memoirists, that's our real challenge, is to look at our shame, dissect it, and then speak about it. Because if it's spoken about, it can't be a secret. It can't be shameful. It's just that the work in doing that is really, really challenging. And so, the essay that I'm working around centers around that one particular aspect of my trauma. And you'd think that it was my dad's suicide, but it's actually a very specific item that's related to that. It's regardless. It's been challenging. It's been tough. And so what I've been really needing to do recently is spending more time being present in the moment outside of my writing, so that when I do come to the page, I'm able to slip in for little bits of time and remember that I'm still here in my body doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm not living in this space in the past.
Yeah.
And what that looks like for me is a lot of swimming, a lot of walking and exercise, a lot of spending time with my toddler and my dog, a lot of quality time with my husband. It's hard to fit it all in, because I have been spending a good chunk of time working on this essay and trying to work through it. And so balancing that with needing to make sure that I'm really, really fully present in the day to day, and that's where I'm living most, is the real call to action for me right now.
I think that that's a really important thing for us to remind ourselves, is especially as memoirists, where we're spending a lot of time living in the past. We spend a lot of time kind of focusing our attention and focusing our thoughts and our efforts to understand on things that have already happened. And in some cases, I think it can kind of get in an obsessive sense. I don't know about you, but for me, it certainly can. And it's been a really important thing for me to remind myself that, I have a life in the here and now. And if that writing that I'm doing is diminishing my life in the here and now, then I have to change the balance somehow. I have to find a way to say, I shouldn't feel guilty when I'm sitting watching my son play baseball and not sitting at my writing desk, because that's my life now and that's where I've come to, right? Yeah. So I definitely think that, finding that balance. And I give you so much credit, because I could never have been writing at the intensity that I know you're writing with a toddler. It's a challenge. We talked about kind of the challenges of motherhood in our written interview, but it is a challenge, and a lot of pulls on your attention and your time. So I'm really glad that you're giving yourself some space and that you've got the support that you need so that you can get that space too.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's interesting, the juxtaposition that we do, and as memoirists, when we sit down to the page talking about our past, when we are in the present moment. And it's just really a matter of needing to achieve that distance again, and remember the journey that the road that you've taken from then to now. And that's what we do too, as memoirists, is honor that journey.
Well, and I think that, we also talked in the written interview about, kind of your vision for this memoir collective, Moving Forewords. And I have just been, from the very beginning, I've found, just your sincerity around wanting to create a community of support, and kind of that necessity, seeing that necessity in yourself and recognizing it in others, and just really kind of bringing this to fruition where you've created both a space for yourself and for others to talk about this process, to talk about the journey that we're on, to find mutual support in that. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about kind of your passion for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with this, because one of the things that I was toying with putting in the interview that I didn't find the space for was this beautiful piece of Jewish folklore. And it's this idea that I'm kind of enchanted by, which is that when we're babies, before we're born, there's an angel that visits us, and we are told we're kind of like these little all-knowing beings. And this angel visits us and, kind of imbues all of this knowledge. And then afterwards, right before we're born, she says, shh, and puts her finger to our lips like this, which is the idea behind why we have that little groove above our upper lip. And so right before we're born, we forget everything that we know. And then we enter into this world and we have to kind of learn who we are as humans. And it's kind of a reminder that our goal is to get back to that remembering. Because there's all sorts of things that are going to happen to us in life. There's all sorts of trauma we're going to face, all sorts of grief, all sorts of loss, all sorts of challenges and adversities that can make us lose sight of who we are if we don't try to trace back to the source of, what does my spirit have in it that has allowed me to journey through this. So that's really, really hard work to do. And we live in such an individualistic society that we can think that we're in it alone. We're told all the time that our stories don't matter, especially as women, especially for minorities. And so it's really critical to build communities so that you remember that we're all in this journey of remembering together.
Well, and I think that, I think the industry has kind of this false sense of competitiveness in it, and I really like how this space has kind of pushed that aside, that it's really just about like, let's be people communicating with other people. And if we have successes in that, let's celebrate them. If we have failures in that, let's comfort the person in the midst of that and continue to encourage them. And again, like I said, I'm just always very, very attracted to your sincerity in that effort. And I think you've done a great job.
Thank you. I was just going to say, it's really all about the connection. When you were talking, it reminded me of, within our group, there was a time that I had finished an essay that I was particularly proud of, and I was about to submit it to, a column that was really competitive. I knew that the odds of getting in were incredibly low. But what I did is I took my work and I sent it out to the group, and I said, and I literally truly felt that it didn't really matter at that point if it got to the place where I wanted it to get, because where it landed were in the hands of all of these writers who I admire incredibly. And that alone felt like a huge success. Yeah. So that's kind of my vision behind and my goal and my hope for, writers who gather.
Sure. What's on your summer reading list? What are you kind of focusing on?
Yeah. So, I am reading right now The Mother of All Questions by Rebecca Solnit. And that has been really awesome and really intense too. And I really couldn't recommend it more, actually. It's an awesome piece of feminist literature. And I've read a lot of Rebecca Solnit's essays and have just been really inspired by them and intrigued by them. So I'm diving into her book now. I've been reading some Anne Lamott just because she's so just soul reviving.
Isn't she? I love her.
She's
I
awesome.
always kind of think of her as my muse, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I just finished Small Victories, and it was just really, really lovely. Right now, I just started diving in yesterday to Sophia, and I am going to botch her last name, Shalmiev's, the Mother Winter, her memoir, her debut memoir. So I've started diving into that, and I'm really excited, and it's really riveting prose. So yeah, that's kind of what that's what I've been diving into
Yeah,
lately.
and I know you read a lot of essays too, because you're great at like posting essays for us to read too. So you
I
keep
read a lot of
you kind
essays.
of keep some variety in what you read. So what are your kind of plans like heading into the fall? Do you have kind of, a transition from summer to fall in terms of your practice or in terms of just how you're kind of living your life in this space?
It's so funny. Fall, no matter how old you get, I feel like, or I mean, it's not like I'm that far away from my school years, but it always feels to me that it's this return to school,
Yeah.
right?
For those of us who are teachers, it actually is, right?
Right,
We
right.
work our
Yeah,
school year around
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but I always think of it as this time to teach myself now, now that I'm no longer in graduate school. It just always feels like this opportunity for learning and growth. So I think what I've started formulating in my mind is really hammering out, and because I really like looking at things in terms of big scope, really hammering out the different pieces of the new memoir manuscript, kind of from a bird's eye view, making sure that I've got all the scenes in place, all of the information that I want to pepper in there as well, so that I can start tackling the different pieces kind of as they come to me instead of necessarily a linear fashion.
Yeah.
So that I think is what my process is going to look like for the fall.
Well, I'm excited. I know you've been working hard on this book, and I'm excited to see it come to fruition as you kind of take this new track with it. And, I'm just excited to see where you go from here. So thank you so much for talking to me today and for sharing some of your wisdom with our viewers and with people who are going to read your interview as well. And I'm really glad to spend this time with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melanie. It really is truly an honor to be sitting here with you, and an honor to have you on board with the initiative, because you were the first person I approached. So I'm just thrilled that we're still together in this, and that we're seeing so many great things start to come of it.
Me too. If people want to find out more about you or get in touch with you, do you have like a Twitter handle, or do you have?
I do. Yep. People can find me at Dana Mich Writes, both on Twitter and on Instagram. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I hope that they reach out. Have a great day, Dana.
same to you, Melanie.
All right. We'll talk soon.